recording is started. So we are expected to deliver the application to the client, and client computer is supposed to have a JRE, Java Runtime Environment, or a JVM mechanism available on his computer to execute the Java application. We are not supposed to send a .java file or a source code to the client. In that case, client need also JDK to compile the source program into the bytecode version of the Java. So that is not expected, right? So we will learn how to, another thing, if you, let's say the demo is the program that we want to sell, for example, let me go to the my software project and then go to the demo directory, I guess. So my Java, and in that demo. If let's say I want to sell this program as an application, for example, आपके पास है? I will share the load distribution again. Let's. Okay. So suppose I want to sell this application as an Java code to everyone. Like I have multiple clients with me, and I want to sell this program as an Java application. Then you have two ways. Ask the person to execute a program by saying Java, and then by simply saying A, and the program will execute. This is how you can ask for your client, but this is not a correct way. Like your client is getting a folder called as a demo, and in that folder you are having again a subfolder, which again having a subfolder. So everything is available for the client. So client expect a single file. If that file he can execute. So that is what is expected by the client. So we will learn something called as a JAR, which stands for Java Archive, which will allow us to create a single binary file or a single file which client will be able to execute, or you will be able to sell to the client. If you want to sell, if you have developed application, create a Java archive file, which is a single file, and the client will be able to execute your application using that JAR file. So we are going to see how to create a Java archive file in this session. So let's start. So our objective is to create Java archive file. So the command to create a Java archive file is jar. Jar stands for Java archive, right? And then we have to give CFM. These are the macros, or these are the parameters, or this is the what we can say flag which will tell us what this command is supposed to do. So when we have C, that stands for create file. CF, that is for the create file. And this M here in the CFM stand, that M represents something called as a manifest. So let's talk about something called as a manifest file. So manifest file is supposed to have a data about data, or a metadata. So manifest file have a metadata. So let me create a simple file. We are not going to execute this jar file just for the sake of understanding what is a manifest. We are creating this. Then as we understand, when we complete understanding what is a manifest file, then we'll create an executable jar file. So let me even drop this M parameter, and let's create a jar file called as test.jar, and we will add a.class file inside this. Now the jar file is ready, and here you can see that the jar file is available in my computer. Now you can execute. What you can do is you can see the contents of this file by saying Java jar hyphen tf and then test.jar file. This will display the contents of jar file on the command prompt, or you can simply right click this and you can say open with any of the archive manager, and still you will be able to see the contents of this. Now you can see there is something called as a meta-inf, and if you open this meta-inf directory, you will find something called as a manifest.mf. mf stands for manifest file. Now, if you open this manifest file, it is supposed to it is expected to have a content about what kind of jar file you have created, what kind of classes are present in your jar file. Though that information is expected to be have in this manifest.mf file. See this .mf, that mf itself representing manifest file. That mf itself is representing manifest file. Sure. So let me extract this file or view file. And here you can see that in this manifest file, it is telling me what is the version of the manifest file, which is 1, and the Oracle JDK version that I'm using, which is right now 11.03. So it is telling me what JDK version I have used and what is the manifest version, and nothing, no else. There is no else. What we can say, like there is no information of what is a class, what is a subdirectory, and all that. All information is not present here. But if you go one level up here, you will find that this is a meta INF. This is meta INF. Now, this meta INF means meta information. Now, what is the meaning of this meta word? Metadata is a very popular term in the computer science. So if you are using a website, like say you are doing a Google or you are using a Gmail, in that Gmail, when you create your user account, like you provide your username, you provide your last name, then you provide your date of birth, mobile information. Then you fill up a form. You fill up a form in that. For example, let's say let's create a Word file. Let's create a Word file. Let me use a blank Word file, right? And this is the online. Assume this is the online way you are doing. Here, I will ask the first name which you are supposed to provide. Then I'll ask the last name which you are again supposed to provide. Then mobile number and the email ID that I want to open and all. So this information I will request the user to provide. Now, when the user will type specifying this information, or when user will start providing this information, let's say the first name is uh, KIT and the last name is COEK, and then mobile number, maybe some random number, and the email ID is, let's say, kitcoek at kitcoek.in is the email ID. Assume this. Now here, KIT is the information, COEK is the information, 9999, which is a mobile number, that is also information, and the email ID is also information. So these are all informations that we have available with us. So what is this first name? What is this last name? What is this mobile number? What do you mean by this email ID? So there's some term using which the programmer or the developer should be able to refer this all things. Like we know that KIT is an information, COEK is an information of a user, 999, which is a mobile number, is also information of a user, and KIT COEK is also information of a user. So what is this KIT exactly? It is a user information, but what kind of information? So we know that this KIT is the first name of the user. This COEK is the last name of the user. This 999 is the mobile number of the user, and this email ID, KIT COEK, is the email ID of the user. So we know that we have some extra information about this data. So like this is the data of user, KIT COEK 999 KIT COEK.in. This is the data of the user. The first name, the last name, the mobile number, the email ID. This is the data about data of a user. So this is the data about data of the user, right? So this data about data is also called as a metadata. So whenever you have information about something, we call that information as metadata. When we will dive into database, right now you people are learning database engineering, right? And I am sure that you might have learned how to create a table and how to enter a data inside a table. So let's say you have a table called as, let's say we have a table called as student. And in this table, you have two fields like roll number and name of student. The student is a table, and this table have a metadata. What is this metadata? Roll number and name is a metadata. And when student will start filling up this table, that will be the information inside a table. For example, let's say there is one entry called as 1 KIT. There is a second entry called as CAC. There is a third entry called as IT. There is a fourth entry called as, let's say, KOP. So this is the information, actual information, and this is the information about information, that what this information is. This one is a roll number and KID is a name. This two is a roll number, CSE is a name. This three is a roll number, IT is a name. So we call this roll number and name as a metadata. That is information about information or data about data, right? So quickly, a question chat box if anyone have a confusion about what is metadata, or you got the concept, what is a metadata? A data about data is called as metadata. So either ask a question or you can post yes if you have got the concept. Is it clear to everyone? Got it. Great. Please repeat is the request by, okay. Aditya is asking me to repeat it. Anyone else want me repeat? Okay. Aditya is again posting the same message. Aditya, I'll repeat in short because you are the only person who is saying to repeat it, or else you can revisit this video when I'll upload it on YouTube, but still I'll explain it in short. Very shortly. Again, if you are not getting it, post the question in the chat box. I'll try to again answer it in a short way. So let me use another example. I will, let's say I'll use roll number and name. So let's say 1, and in the name, I'll use your name itself. Fine, Aditya. Now, what is this one? The one is associated with the Aditya. But what is Aditya? Let me replace this Aditya with any other information. Let me say it is a binary information as we store it in a computer, right? And the name would be some bunch of binary digit. Now, what is 1111 about, which has been created with the spaces, and what is this 1110 on the left side? So this is the information, right? There is some sort of information that we have, but what this information is. So I can say that the first column information is, let's say, nation code, and the second information after this, or the STD code, and after this, whatever I have, I'll call this as company number. Now this information start making sense that this 111 is a company number and this 1110 is the some nation's country's code. If I remove this, which immediately a moment ago I was not having here, now if I remove this, a computer science person may treat this as a binary information. Somebody else will say that this is 1110, and so there is some random 111, 11, 11, and 11 separate digits on the right side. So what is this information? It is right now not making any sense. So a person who is reading this information will have his own bias and will understand this information in a different way as per his requirement. He will assume this information. But to remove this bias, we provide information. Hey, this left side is a country code and the right side is a mobile number. So this is a very crucial information. It is information about information. What is the real information? This country code and the number. But how do we understand this? This is that 1110 is a country code and the rest of the thing is a company's number. How do we get it? Because this company number and nation code is the information provided by the form or provided by the website. So when you provide information about information, for example, your roll calls, on the top of the roll call, the first row is always roll number, and the second column may be your PRN number, and the third column may be your name. So if I delete that first row, which is specifying what this column about, then the random person will not be able to understand what this information is. So whether the first column is a roll number or a serial number, nobody can guess. The second column is some number, whether that is a PRN number or some contact number or some exam form number or the application number, what is that? The right side, as we are humans, we are able to interpret that these are the Indian names. But what if the African person is sitting in front of the computer? He will not be able to even read that information properly. And again, that fellow will have a dilemma what this information is about. But as soon as you put a column name, like name is the English word, then the PRN, permanent number, and the left side is roll number. If I give that sheet to any damn person in the world who understands English, Even if he is not able to understand the Hindi language or the Marathi language or the Indian religions where we have the Indian names, he will be able to figure out that, okay, this third column is about the student's name, the second column is about the student's registration number, and the first column is about the student's roll number. So we call this first row as a metadata because it is information about information. So whenever we provide information about information, we call that as a meta information. Or trickier, people call it as, if I say this everything is data, then this is data about data. This is a data about data. I hopefully, Aditya, you got it. Aditya, did you get this? Okay, fine. Anybody else have a doubt? Fine. So I'll assume that everyone have got the metadata concept. So let's continue. Now look at this directory structure, jar file content. We have a meta inf directory automatically created. So meta information. This is a directory which is automatically created. And right now that information is having only about what is the JDK version and what is my meta information version. Nothing else is inside this. While creating the jar file, this was the command that I used, and here nowhere I've provided any information about my jar file. So whenever we want our jar file to be created, it is expected from a developer that he will provide some sort of information about what kind of jar file he's expecting to create. We are interested in a very specific information here. Let me share you a command which we can use to execute a jar file. So here java-jar and test.jar is expected to execute a jar file. But if I press enter, it says that no main manifest attribute in test.jar. So again, you can see that manifest attribute is missing. And if I open this test.jar file, you will be surprised to see that there is a manifest information, meta.inf, and it contains manifest info. But the compiler, if you are trying to compile, it is complaining that there is no manifest attribute. But in reality, there is a manifest information. This MF stands for manifest information or manifest file. M manifest MF. Fine. So compiler is wrong here. But actually the compiler is complaining something else. What compiler is saying that no main. So here the word is main. So your Java compiler, sorry, not a compiler, it's an interpreter which submits your code to the JVM for the execution. So here Java interpreter is not able to figure out where to start program execution, where the main method is. That information is not available in your manifest file. So that is the complaint from Java interpreter. Now here it is a job of a developer or a coder to, while creating a jar file, that he must create a meta information which will tell that, okay, this is how you are supposed to start your jar file. This is the entry point of your jar file. So what is the entry point of our application? If I am executing my application manually, the a.class file is the entry point of my application and the application execute. This is the information about application which is in your brain. Like, okay, if I want to execute this application, this program, I have to execute a file, a.class file, and this will execute my application. Now, this is the information with you. Now, you have to provide this information to the jar file that, okay, you have to start the application from a.class file. Now, a.class file itself is information. And when we provide this information that, okay, the main method is inside a.class file, we are providing data about data. What is my data? A.class. Now I'm providing extra information about my a.class file, that this a.class file contains the main method. So I'll call this information as metadata, that my a.class file contains a main method, right? So a.class file is my data, and the information about that data is a.class file contains the main method. So as soon as I use this information, this becomes my metadata. Are we clear? If anyone have a doubt, please post the question in chat box, or you can post yes if you got it. Okay, fine. We'll get it. So let's create something, a text file. So let me open up this one, and we have already opened this file, view file. You can see that this manifest, even if the extension is .mf, actually this is a text file and nothing special. So we can create a text file which will have the information that we want to provide to our jar file, that where to find the entry point. So let me use Notepad, and I'll create a file called as m.txt. Now here you can give extension as .mf, which will represent a manifest file, or you can simply use a .txt, which is a default extension for Notepad. It will not create any difference. So if you use .mf extension, that is fine. If you do not use it and use a default extension of a Notepad, that is also fine. Also, you can give any name. Here I'm using M, just a single letter. You can call it as a manifest.txt. You can call it as a roll number 1.txt. You can call it as a example.txt. So there is no restriction on how you want to name this file. It will be up to you, right? So let me use this m.txt to create a manifest information. Now, as soon as I open this file, okay, 1 minute. As soon as we open up this file, what we want to provide here, look at the error. The error was no main information. So your jar file do not have any information about where to find a main method. So this metadata, exactly this information, that where to look for the main method, entry point of an application. That information we are going to provide this into this manifest file. So here, how to provide this information? So we have to use one attribute called as main. So this is missing, right? The main is missing. And in which class this main method is there? So main hyphen class colon and only single space, and then the name of the class which contains the main method. So this is the metadata, data about data. Data is A, and you are telling the jar file that A class contains the main method. So main M capital hyphen C capital class colon the name of the class which contains the main method, right? So now listen carefully, pay attention. If you are using a Windows platform, then make sure that you press enter here, only one enter key, and then save the file, right? And then save the file. If you are using a Linux platform, then do not press enter and save the file. Why this is important? Any extra character, depending on the platform, will make your manifest file useless. Mark these words very carefully. Windows platform, you must press enter key, only single enter. Linux platform, nothing has to be done. Even if you type space, your manifest file is useless, right? In Linux platform. In Windows also, if you type this, if you give space and then enter, then again your manifest file becomes useless. You make sure that you have typed this information correctly. If it is a Linux or a Mac OS, don't do anything. Save the manifest file and start using it. If it's Windows platform, give only one enter and save the manifest file, and then you are able to use it. Why this is so? This is a platform dependence. The manifest file has to be read completely. So Linux says that I will read the main class without using the carriage return. As soon as there is a carriage return, the manifest file will keep on rolling to the next line, and the Linux platform will look for the last main hyphen class colon tab in the last line. Whereas the Windows platform says that I will not read the line which have carriage return. So if you keep this here, and if you do not give the carriage return, Windows will assume that this is the last line of the file and it will ignore this. Whereas the Linux will understand this as a last line and will read this. And if you press enter, then manifest file will stop functioning. In Windows, the case is very different. The Windows platform, if you do not give this enter, will treat this as the last line and will not read it. Windows platform do not read last line, The Linux platform reads only last line from the manifest file to check where to find entry point. So this is a very important part, right? Let me show you how this works. So I'm making a mistake intentionally. So I'm keeping this, I'm not pressing the enter key. I'm saying main hyphen class colon A, which is the entry point. And now let me use this in my program. So I'll say jar. Okay, one more thing, what I'll do is, for the understanding purpose, I will comment out all the package level accesses from the program. So this will be a simple a.java file which have nothing but one message. Let me compile my javac a.java file again. So compile. Now our main manifest information is available. Now let me create a jar file. So I'll say jar create file with the help of manifest. Create file with the help of manifest cfm. The name of the file should be test.jar. This is the file that I want to create. You can find the meta information inside m.txt file. So this is the file in which you can find the meta information. And the actual class file that you want to execute. The class file that you want to execute is a.class. This is the single file that I want to add into my program. So I'll press enter and the jar file will be created. So let me say CLS, clear the screen. Before that, let me show you the jar file is created. Here you can see that test.jar is available. Now let me clear the screen. Now how to execute a jar file. So I'll say java hyphen jar, which is the command to execute a jar file, and I'll say test.jar. And you get the message, the main method of class A. So your main method executed. I guess my carriage return is available in my m.text file. Yes, it is available, so it worked. Let me save this. Tell m.txt. So the file has been deleted. So saved updated version del test.jar, then the CLS, then again let's create a jar file. Okay, and then java hyphen jar test.jar. So here again you can see that even if we have provided the manifest information, there is an error. Again the same error is same, no main manifest attribute. Whereas if I open up my jar file, in this case, if I open up my jar file, fine. And if you go inside this meta-nf, and if we open this meta-nf file, view, right? So again, we have a problem. So what we have to do is, why this happened? Because here in Windows, Java did not read your manifest file, because what Java does in the case of Windows is it reads the manifest file up to the last line and it ignores the last line. So this is the first and the last line in my file. So what did Java did in my environment, Windows environment? It ignored the last line. So as soon as it ignored the last line, which contains my main hyphen class meta information, if this line is getting ignored, how come my jar file will understand where to find the main method? So what we have to make sure that in Windows platform, you have to press enter and add an extra line. As soon as you add an extra line, this becomes the first line in the file and you have a last line. So Windows platform ignores last line in case of a Java. Linux platform ignores Linux platform will make sure that if you have a carriage return, then it will read the last line as an entry point for the main. Whereas the Windows platform ignores the last line and reads the first line as an entry point of a main method. This is the crucial difference. In Windows, make sure that you press enter. In Linux, make sure that you don't press enter. Right? If you do any mistake, for example, if you make this C as a small, if you make this M as a small, then this manifest file is useless. So not a single character mistake is allowed while creating a manifest file. Make sure that you write M, make sure that you write C here and save this. Fine. And my file have an extra line here. So the Windows platform is going to ignore the last line. It will ignore the blank line, and it will read my first line, which have the manifest information. Right now, let's now try to create a jar file with this updated manifest file, m.txt. Now the jar file is ready. You can see the test.jar is available. And now if I try to execute java-jar test.jar, this will execute. Any doubt up to this point? Post your questions in chat box. If you have any doubt, post it in chat box. Or you can post as yes if you got it up to this point. Great, great. Aditya, if there are two blank lines after main class, no problem. As soon as your JVM and hits the blank line, it will stop interpreting the program in the case of Windows platform. But in the case of Linux, even extra space, your program will stop working. Fine. So in the case of Windows, make sure that you do not have any space after this, and you give at least one blank line. Simply press enter key and the file will start working. Okay, Aditya? Okay, great. So now this has created only one class file. Your jar file have only one class file. What about you while creating a package? Now, what was our actual program? Let me open up the jar file. This is the actual program in which you are calling subclasses called as C and then D. And you are importing packages. You are importing C package. You are importing D sub and sub one package in your program. Then these packages must be available in the jar file. So let's learn how to do that immediately. Right. I've seen. I will show you the common mistake that students do. This is a very foolish mistake. I've seen this. I've seen students committing this mistake while the campus drives. I've seen committing this mistake by student while they during the examination. So focus. Don't commit this mistake. Right. So I'm going to show you what is a common mistake, and we are not supposed to do it. As soon as you commit the same mistake, that's a whole problem, right? I've seen people coming out of an interview and they have committed this mistake in the coding round, and the interviewer will start grilling the person on the same point. So make sure that you don't do it. So if I create a jar file, right? Let's create a jar file now. Let's understand jar cf, and what you do is uh, on the web, on many of the literatures, in books, in many of the videos, in documentations or tutorials of Java website, you will find that people sometimes recommend use star, right? And they ask you to use star, and students do that. They use star key, and if you press enter, what happens is jar hyphen tf test. Now here you can see that everything, the jar file itself is a part of it. The subdirectories are part of it. Importantly, the source code has become the part of the jar file. The manifest file, yes, we want to become a part of a jar file, but everything has been added in your jar file. All kachara, all junk thing which is not required inside a part of a part of a jar file, that everything is added. So as soon as you use this wildcard character, then your jar file is of no use. So don't do it. Don't do it. Not recommended. So how to create a jar file? Always specify pinpointed what you want inside a jar file. Never, or a very important line, never ever add a single file which is not required during the execution. So what are the files that we do not read during the execution? We do not need this m.txt file. We do not need this a.java file. We do not need this test.jar file as a part of jar itself, right? So this is the mistake that we have committed. Now let's improve this. So while creating a jar file, make sure that you want to give the name of the jar. I will call the new jar as demo.jar. Then I have to use this flag called as m, which will indicate that I'm going to mark manifest file, and my manifest file is m.txt. We have already created this. My m.txt is manifest file. Then a dot class is the main method class that I want. But this a dot class now is calling C class and the method of C class. It also calling D class and the method of a D class. It is importing two packages, which is sub1, which is inside sub, and sub package itself. So we have to provide this all information on this line. Like I have to say import, and then the directory information. Like I want to add sub and all the class files. Remember, guys, if you use only wildcard character, this is offensive. Like this is a very damn foolish mistake. Don't commit it. Don't use this wildcard character only. I want all the classes. Right now we have only one class, so I can write C dot class, which is accepted. But what if you have two classes? You're going to write it again, like sub, and then let's say you have another class called as E, and you write E dot class. So why online webs recommend to use a wildcard is to accept all the class files in one go. And what students do is they simply put a wildcard and that include everything like subdirectory, .java file, .class file inside the jar file. And that is a horrible mistake. So what we have to make sure that if you have multiple classes and you want to add these all classes in one go, then use star.class, star.class. Make sure that you add this dot class. This will add only class files from your directory. Then you have sub1, and then again write star dot class. So this line will include the first package. This line will include the second package and only dot class files from your package. Right? Now I am ready to hit enter. Let me hit enter. Oh, okay, have I compiled this? I guess I haven't compiled this. I will create demo jar again after compiling a file. So let me compile java c a.java, which will update everything inside it. And now we create a demo.jar again. Now let's check whether our program executes demo.jar. Now here you can see that everything is working. So main method is been called, demo method of C class has been called, as well as display method of class D is also called. So everything is working. And if we see the content of jar file, which we can by simply typing jar-tf and then the demo.jar, here you can see that there is a.class, there is a folder called as sub, in which there is only c.class file. There is also a folder called as sub and sub1, in which there is only d.class file. No Java file, no garbage, pure executable jar file. Now, very important part. Let's copy this file on D drive. Copy demo.jar on D drive. Let's do it. So one file has been copied. Let me go to my D drive. Now, let's say this D drive belongs to your client and he have installed jar in a JVM environment or a GRE environment on his computer. And you have given in your application file, which is called as demo.jar. Now, as soon as your client hits enter, the application executes. And he only have a jar file. He only have a jar file. So no extra information is required by your client. One can also do another strategy called as notepad. Let me show you this. Let's say call it as app start dot batch, right? App start dot batch. I'm going to create this file. Let me save this file on desktop. And what I'll write is, I'll write some commands. I'll say PMD and all. Okay, whether I should do it or not. Okay, fine. I will give one task to you people. The clue is you have to create a batch file. You have to create a batch file, right? And writing this will take you to the D drive. And if you add this command, java-jar, and then demo.jar, it is expected that this command will execute in a command prompt. So if I save this job, I'm not going to execute because I'm not writing the full sync. Let me save this. I've saved this. Fine. And let me go to the desktop. Here you can see the jar batch file is being created. As soon as I double click on this line, the jar file is supposed to execute. So here is a task for the entire class. there will be a new assignment rolling on the Moodle, which is of jar file. And I want you people to create this batch file. In the case of Linux environment, if you're using a Linux environment, students are expected to create a shell file, shell script for this, right? And you will show me how to execute this jar file automatically as soon as the client execute on this icon, right? Is everything okay with everyone? Like you are confident with jar file? Yes, no? You even can post yes if you have got the concept of jar file. If you want anything to be repeated, let me. Okay, batch file chi nahi kala. Okay, batch file. I'm not asking you to learn it. If you are not able to do it, complete it. I will explain how to create a batch file in the case of Windows, and in the case of Linux, it has to be a shell script. That is an exercise. So no spoon feeding. You try it. If you fail to do it, I will explain how to do it. Apart from this, everything is okay with the jar file. Fine, great. So you people are okay with the jar file. Then time has come to. So anybody have a doubt? No doubt. You can raise a hand in the. You can raise a hand if you have a doubt. If you have a doubt, raise a hand. Otherwise, I'll post a new poll in immediately. Anyone have a doubt? Anyone have raised the hand? Okay, nobody has raised the hand. So immediately, let's go to the poll. So few questions on what we have explored today. Poll is available to everyone. You have 1 minute. Your buffer time of 20 seconds has started. Submit your answers immediately. Okay, let's check out the results. I'm happy that 65 people, 73% of the class have got the correct answer, and very few people have got the wrong answer, right? It's really nice thing that you people got it, the concept of jar file. Immediate new question is coming on screen. Poll of 5. Fine. So poll is available. Give your responses. So 48% of the people have got the correct answer. No answer by 21 people. I guess I've closed the buffer period. So because of this, the answer has been not submitted. I'll accept this. And so C is the correct answer. Hard to accept that 6 people have got a completely wrong answer, which is to have only Java files. That is a very wrong answer. And 20 people, I asked that please don't commit this mistake. Like the common mistake that students commit is they add .java files as well as .class files inside a jar file. So here you are accept giving the same answer, right? So it is not expected. This is again wrong answer. 24% people have got a very wrong answer. And immediately one more last question. So poll is open. Give the answer immediately. So what is the code in a dot class file? As you can see that 65% of the people have got the correct answer, which is B, bytecode. So dot class file contains a bytecode. 12 people have given the answer as machine executable code, which is wrong, right? So we have the bytecode inside the dot class file. So that dot class files are being contained inside a jar file, and this jar file is given to JVM for the execution, and then JVM will do every story that it can do it for the single class file. So it is there, right? So now quickly there will be assignment rolling out on a Moodle, and we are going to have 2 hours discussion sessions for the assignments. So I'll be keep opening up the deadlines for all the assignments on Moodle, no issues. And we are going to have a discussion session in which if you have any query related to the assignment program, or if you have any trouble in executing, for example, some days ago, some people were having the problem regarding the setting up the environment variable and all. So we'll solve such kind of issues in that session. So we're going to have a 2-hour session since the in the next week we'll have that session, right? So in the next lecture, we are going to target something called as inner classes and nested classes in Java. So, and why inner classes and nested classes in Java now? We have learned packaging mechanism. We know already what is a public, private, and protected. We know now static. We know what is a constant. We know now class. We know now static method. We have information about regular method. Now this all information will help us, or it will help us in understanding in a better way what is the meaning of inner class and a nested inner class in Java. So the next session will be dedicated to discussing nested classes in Java environment. Thank you. You can leave the meeting. No problem. Or anyone have a doubt, you can ask me.